You can't park that here. Everybody can relax. I found the car.
Ghostbusters wasn't just funny. It was a blockbuster exorcism of New York, stitched together under a clock that never stopped.
You gotta do something! Help me!
Don't talk to me. Talk to my attorney.
That's me! My guys are still under a judicial estrangement order. That blue thing I got from her. They could be exposing themselves.
And you don't want us exposing ourselves.
The movie you know started as a galaxy-hopping script no studio could afford. Ramis and Reitman brought it home to Manhattan, where real streets shut down. Isaac Asimov complained about the gridlock, and a Tribeca firehouse became a shrine. The name Ghostbusters almost slipped away to a kid's TV owner. The theme song triggered a legal brawl, and the logo faced its own courtroom scare. Through it all, a brand new effects studio was built just to finish on time. These are 20 weird facts about Ghostbusters. And there's a bonus waiting, the tiny, wordless moment that survived a deleted subplot and turned into the strangest wink in the film. The cosmic first draft. Dan Aykroyd didn't start in New York. He started in the cosmos. His first Ghostbusters treatment imagined multiple teams jumping dimensions, blasting spirits in future cities, even other eras. It was wild. It was huge. And it was financially impossible in 1983. Enter Harold Ramis and Ivan Reitman. They took the same DNA and shrunk it to something sharp. One team, one city, one crisis. Suddenly, the haunted skyscrapers of Manhattan replaced wormholes. The tech got scrappier, the comedy got faster, and the studio gave them a brutal clock, roughly a year from go to show. Scale down, level up. The result wasn't smaller, it was clearer. A startup story in a haunted city, built for speed and jokes, that could actually be filmed. The Belushi Shadow. The original Dreamcast carried a ghost of its own. Aykroyd wrote with John Belushi in mind. Rowdy, lovable, unstoppable. Then tragedy hit. Belushi died in 1982 and the project lost its heartbeat. That grief didn't leave, it morphed. On set, they nicknamed a certain green puppet Onion Head, but Aykroyd kept calling it something else. The Belushi Ghost. Slimer's appetite, his wrecking ball energy, the way he barrels through the hotel like he owns the place, none of that is random. It's a tribute in goo. The friend who should have been a Ghostbuster becomes the movie's messiest spirit, forever hungry, forever crashing the party. It's funny on the surface and quietly gutting underneath. A wink, a nod, and a goodbye that never quite says goodbye. The Murray handshake. Bill Murray didn't ink a tidy studio contract and settle in. He gave a yes that was closer to a promise than paperwork. Industry lore says Columbia's willingness to back his passion project, The Razor's Edge, sealed it. Then he did the most Bill Murray thing possible, showed up day one and just took over the rhythm. Not rude. Magnetic. He riffed. He rewired scenes. He made sarcasm the movie's secret engine and Peter Venkman its smirking heartbeat. Editors later juggled take after take because he never did a line the same way twice. That could have sunk a schedule already sprinting towards summer. Instead, it snapped the tone into focus. Dry, dangerous, and weirdly sincere. 3 seeds were planted. An idea too big, a loss too heavy, and a star too unpredictable. And from that mix came choices that no one on set could have seen coming. Winston's vanishing pages. Ernie Hudson thought he'd landed a dream part. Winston Zeddemore, written as an Air Force demolitions vet with a full backstory and equal footing alongside Venkman, Ray, and Egon. Early drafts gave him a heroic entrance in major scenes. Then came rewrites. Eddie Murphy had been eyed for the role, but once he passed, Winston's arc shrank. By the time Hudson arrived, his character didn't even appear until halfway through the film. Much of his dialogue had been shifted to Murray, who was devouring the spotlight with improv. Hudson played the part with quiet grounding, but he's admitted he was stunned when he opened the new script on set. What could have been 4 equals became 3 stars and 1 Ghostbuster who deserved more. John Candy's wild pitch. Louis Tully, Dana's nerdy neighbor, was first offered to John Candy, but Candy didn't want to play him as written. He pitched something outrageous. Louis with a thick German accent, constantly flanked by 2 large German shepherds. No one knew why, but Candy was serious. He insisted the dogs be integral to the character. Even Reitman listened, then politely passed. Candy walked away, and Rick Moranis slid in. Moranis retooled Louis as the hapless accountant who rattles off tax codes at parties, improvising his way into one of the film's funniest roles. Candy's eccentric version never happened, but the idea of Louis bringing his own demon dogs? In hindsight, it feels like cosmic foreshadowing. Sigourney becomes a dog. When Sigourney Weaver walked into her audition for Dana Barrett, she didn't just read lines, she transformed. Midway through, she dropped to the floor, growled, and mimed her body twisting into a terror dog. The room froze. Yvonne Reitman was half startled, half awestruck. Here was an actress who wasn't just playing possessed, she was possessed. Fresh off Alien, Weaver already had presence, but this sealed it. Her audition reshaped Dana, giving the role an intensity that could balance Bill Murray's smirking energy and still feel believable when Zool took over her body. In that moment, Weaver didn't just win the role. She gave the film its human anchor, one who could convincingly fall in love, fend off demons, and terrify the audience in the same breath. The title that almost vanished. While cameras rolled, nobody knew if the movie could even be called Ghostbusters. Filmation owned the rights to the name, thanks to a campy 70s kids show. Columbia had to shoot backup takes where the cast shouted Ghost Breakers and Ghost Smashers, just in case. Reitman was panicked. Who would buy tickets for a blockbuster with a Saturday morning title? Weeks before release, Columbia struck a deal, paying heavily for the rights. The irony hit later when the spin-off cartoon debuted as The Real Ghostbusters, a tongue-in-cheek reminder that the film almost lost one of the most perfect titles in movie history. The cast was set, the name secured, and the city waiting. Yet what unfolded once cameras rolled would test the limits of foam, fire, and pure improvisation. The Marshmallow Menace was real. The Stay Puffed. Marshmallow Man wasn't CGI magic. It was a stunt performer named Bill Bryan, sweating inside a $20,000 foam suit, tromping through an elaborate miniature Manhattan. Each skyscraper had to be rigged with pyrotechnics and destroyed in a single take. Because once a model collapsed, there was no rebuilding it. The production made multiple suits, but none survived intact. The fear wasn't just cost, it was tone. Even Reitman thought a giant smiling mascot might turn his movie into parody. But at the first screening, the crowd erupted. What he saw as the riskiest joke landed as the film's unforgettable punchline. Stay Puffed didn't sink Ghostbusters, he made it immortal. The Ghostly Library Showdown. The film's very first scare almost got cut. Studio executives worried the library ghost was too frightening for a comedy, afraid kids would bolt before the jokes arrived. But Reitman insisted it stay. He knew the film needed a genuine jolt to prove its ghosts mattered. Test audiences screamed when the librarian's face exploded into a banshee, then laughed as the Ghostbusters ran for their lives. In a single beat, the formula was locked. Shock, then relief, then comedy. That scream set the tone for the entire franchise. It wasn't just a gag. It was the DNA of Ghostbusters, the Ecto-1 that barely survived. The Ghostbusters ride began as a busted 1959 Cadillac Miller Meteor ambulance, chosen over Dan Aykroyd's original idea of a black neon-lit hearse. The crew painted it white, loaded the roof with gadgets, and gave it that wailing siren that felt like no other car on the street. But on set, the Ecto-1 was cursed. It broke down constantly, overheating, or simply refusing to start during takes. Mechanics worked around the clock just to keep it alive long enough for each shot. By the final day, the car was patched together with more hope than hardware. But when it finally roared across the bridge, siren blaring, it didn't matter. The machine wasn't just a prop, it became the fifth Ghostbuster, building a VFX studio from scratch. Industrial Light and Magic was busy with Return of the Jedi and Indiana Jones. So when Columbia needed hundreds of ghost shots, they had no place to go. Richard Edlund, fresh from ILM, pitched a wild idea. Build a new studio just for Ghostbusters. Columbia and MGM funded the gamble, and Boss Film Studios was born. With less than a year, the team hand-animated proton beams, designed terror dogs, and invented slime effects on the fly. Some shots were delivered days before the premiere. The risk paid off. Not only did Boss pull off Ghostbusters, it went on to craft effects for Die Hard, Big Trouble in Little China, and Batman Returns. Ghostbusters didn't just make money, it rewired the industry. The name game panic. Even with cameras rolling, the film's title was still in limbo. Filmation, the studio behind a goofy 1970s show, owned the rights to Ghostbusters. Columbia scrambled, shooting alternate takes with names like Ghost Breakers. Crew members joked, but Reitman was sweating. No one wanted to launch a blockbuster under a placeholder. Finally, a deal was struck. Columbia paid big, and the name stuck. Ironically, the animated series years later had to call itself The Real Ghostbusters as a wink to that legal mess. The title that almost didn't make it became one of the most iconic in movie history. Foam giants, cursed cars, and last-second VFX miracles had carried the film through production. But the strangest twists weren't inside the movie. They exploded once it hit the public. The hotline that melted phones. Before viral marketing was a phrase, Ghostbusters pulled a stunt no one saw coming. In one TV spot, a 1-800 number flashed on screen as if the Ghostbusters were running a real exterminator business. The number wasn't fake. Fans who called were greeted by a recorded message from Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd in character, saying they were out busting ghosts. The line lit up instantly, logging about 1,000 calls per hour, 24 hours a day, for 6 straight weeks. No hashtags, no social media, just word of mouth and a ringing phone line. It was a low-budget trick that turned into a publicity avalanche. The theme song that went to court. Ray Parker Jr. had less than a week to write the theme. The pressure was brutal, but he delivered Who You Gonna Call? A hook so sticky it rewired pop culture. It went to number 1, played endlessly on radio, and became as famous as the film itself. But there was a problem. The groove sounded suspiciously like Huey Lewis's hit I Want a New Drug. Lewis's camp sued, claiming Parker had borrowed more than inspiration. The case was settled quietly, but the whispers never died. Irony stung. The movie about busting ghosts nearly got haunted by a chart-topping lawsuit. The logo that went on trial. That little white ghost in the no symbol became one of cinema's most recognizable logos, but not before it caused a legal scare. Harvey Comics, publisher of Casper the Friendly Ghost, sued Columbia, claiming the logo looked too much like Casper's uncle, Fatso. The complaint argued the rounded body and goofy grin were lifted straight from their cartoons. A judge disagreed. The logo was ruled generic enough to stand. The lawsuit fizzled, but for a while, even the movie's branding felt like it could vanish. Today, the no ghost symbol isn't just safe. It's iconic, far eclipsing the cartoon ghost it supposedly copied. The Asimov Showdown. When the crew shut down streets to film Dana Barrett's haunted apartment building at 55 Central Park West, New Yorkers fumed. Traffic snarled, horns blared, and one angry bystander stormed the set. Science fiction legend Isaac Asimov. He lived nearby and hated the chaos. Dan Aykroyd, a lifelong Asimov fan, ran to calm him down. Instead of apologizing, he gushed about Asimov's books until the author cracked a reluctant smile. The film left tire tracks on the city, but it also absorbed its pulse. Ghostbusters didn't just use New York as a backdrop, it wrestled with it in real time. But the movie's fate wouldn't be decided in boardrooms or courtrooms, it would be decided by an audience that no one expected to show up the way they did. The firehouse that became sacred. The Ghostbusters headquarters wasn't a studio set. It was Hook and Ladder 8, a working firehouse in Tribeca. Its red doors and brick facade became one of the most photographed locations in New York. But the building's role didn't end with the film. After Ghostbusters became a hit, fans started treating the station like a shrine, leaving marshmallows, flowers, and even homemade proton packs at the door. After September 11th, when firefighters stationed there became heroes, the logo outside took on deeper meaning. For movie fans and New Yorkers alike, Hook and Ladder 8 is more than just a backdrop. It's a piece of living history. Box office lightning. On paper, Ghostbusters was a gamble, a horror comedy hybrid with a bloated budget and no guarantee audiences would show up. Critics were skeptical, calling it uneven and noisy. Then came opening weekend in June 1984. The movie pulled in $13 million in just 3 days, shocking the industry. By midsummer, it had overtaken Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom at the box office. By the end of its run, it had grossed nearly $300 million worldwide, making it the highest-earning comedy of the decade. The gamble had turned into a juggernaut. A film once dismissed as too weird was now rewriting Hollywood math. The one-year miracle. Most blockbusters take years to gestate. Ghostbusters had 12 months. Columbia demanded a summer '84 release, forcing the team to write, cast, shoot, edit, and deliver hundreds of visual effects in record time. Aykroyd, Ramis, and Reitman hammered out the script in 3 frenzied weeks on Martha's Vineyard. Effects were still being delivered days before the premiere. Nights blurred into mornings. Deadlines seemed impossible, and yet the impossible happened. When audiences sat down in June, they didn't see the panic behind the curtain. They saw proton streams firing across New York. What should have been a train wreck became one of the most polished chaos machines in film history. Why it endures. Decades later, Ghostbusters still resonates. Not just because of the proton packs or Slimer or Stay Puft, but because the movie caught lightning in a bottle. The balance of scary and silly. The underdog scientists who weren't superheroes but hustlers. The chemistry of actors who thrived on chaos. It feels scrappy and unpredictable, yet weirdly sincere. You believe in the friendship even as you laugh at the slime. That's why kids still suit up every Halloween, why fans still quote the lines, and why the firehouse still draws pilgrimages. Ghostbusters wasn't polished, it was raw magic, and that's why it never fades. And here's another fact you may not know. That infamous bedroom montage shot, Ray Stantz lying in bed as a ghost unbuckles his belt, has puzzled audiences for decades. Was it a dream? A joke? The truth is stranger. It was the leftover scrap of a deleted subplot set at Fort Detmering, where Ray and Winston investigated a haunted military outpost. The full sequence was cut, but one insert slipped into the film, divorced from its context. What should have been a side adventure collapsed into a surreal, wordless gag that made it to theaters. It's the strangest kind of cinematic ghost, a scene that exists but not really. Ghostbusters started as an unfilmable space opera and ended as a comedy classic, forged under impossible pressure. And somehow it still feels alive today. But if you think this chaos was wild, wait until you see the next movie's weird facts that may surprise you. Click on the video on screen to watch. And those are 21 strange facts about Ghostbusters. Drop a comment with your favorite memory of seeing it for the first time. Smash that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive into your favorite movie facts you never knew.